This was the scene on Capitol Hill today. Members of the disability community, you can see them right there in the video, showed up at a House committee meeting to protest Republicans' proposed changes to Medicaid in their budget bill. Changes that the Congressional Budget Office says could cause millions of Americans to lose insurance coverage. What better to protest? Now, the people there, you can see them all. They're voicing their freedom of speech right there. They interrupted the meeting with shouts of "no cuts to Medicaid, no cuts to Medicaid," and were promptly escorted out of the building by police officers. 25 of them were arrested. And then, even after all that, Republicans went forward with their first step toward enacting those Medicaid cuts. And that all created what I would consider quite a split-screen moment today, because as those concerned citizens you just saw protesting in the House what the impact of Medicaid cuts would be on their lives and many of the lives of their friends and colleagues around the country, where was Donald Trump? Well, the President of the United States was nearly 7,000 miles away, sitting in a gilded palace surrounded by billionaires. Now, the stated reason for his visit to Saudi Arabia and his palling around with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, also known as MBS, and a man perhaps best known for personally approving the murder of an American journalist, was to get them to invest in American businesses. Trump claimed at the outset of his trip that he was going to get the Saudis to invest a whopping $1 trillion in the U.S., which is a lot of money. But it turns out his math was pretty far off, because MBS said his country plans to invest $600 billion in the U.S., well short of Trump's $1 trillion figure. Still a lot of money, still a lot of money. But there are more wrinkles to it, because the New York Times looked into this and they noted neither the Trump numbers or the Saudi numbers are remotely even possible. Here's what they said. The figure Mr. Trump is seeking exceeds the value of all assets in the kingdom's hefty sovereign wealth fund, meaning there's no way they can come up with that money. One expert told the Times, quote, "I don't see how they get anywhere close to $600 billion, let alone $1 trillion. Okay, that's where we are with the math. Then that leads us to today. When Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia, he was met with big signs boasting that the Saudis would be investing $300 billion. You can see the sign right there. They literally made that signage in advance in the U.S. They made it, but they made it for the trip. Now, that is obviously quite a bit less. It's actually less than a third of what Trump originally said. Let's be honest. This is something we have come to expect, right, from Donald Trump. He loves to move the goalposts, and he's moved them constantly all the course of the time he's been in office, certainly during his first administration. Remember back in his first term, the Trump White House announced a controversial deal to sell $110 billion worth of weapons to Saudi Arabia, $110 billion. This was all right around the same time that the Saudi government brutally murdered and dismembered American journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And a lot of people, including even Republicans, did not want Trump to reward Saudi Arabia with this big arms deal. But the Trump administration went forward with it anyway, claiming the deal would potentially support tens of thousands of new jobs in the United States. And I will tell you, the phrase potentially supporting was doing a whole lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, because Trump boasted about this deal repeatedly. And every time he did, the numbers kept changing. Do you see a pattern here? I mean, they changed a lot in this case. Watch this.
We're talking about over 40,000 jobs in the United States. It's 450,000 jobs.
Who are we hurting? It's 500,000 jobs.
$110 billion worth of work, which means 600,000 jobs. You're talking about over 1 million jobs.
I mean, from 40,000 jobs to over 1 million jobs. That was in the span of just 7 months, by the way, all those clips. Now, in the end, Saudi Arabia didn't even purchase the whole $110 billion worth of weapons that Trump announced in the first place. In fact, they actually spent less money on American goods and services than they did during Barack Obama's second term. It was all kind of a big shell game. And that appears to be exactly what we're seeing this time around as well. I mean, by now you have definitely heard that one of Trump's biggest agenda items on this Middle East trip is to accept a big $400 million luxury plane as a gift from the nation of Qatar. He wants the plane to become the new Air Force One. but only for the duration of his presidency, after which ownership of the plane would be transferred to Trump's presidential library. How convenient is all of that? Now, the whole thing is obviously super shady. We're going to talk to a bunch of people about it tonight. And even a lot of conservatives don't want Trump to accept this plane. But Trump says it's too good a deal to pass up. In a post on his social media site, he called the new plane a gift free of charge, in all caps internet shouting style, which is definitely not true either. I mean, look at this reporting from Politico. They say a private contractor would have to rip the jet apart to turn it into a flying White House for the president with secure communications and classified upgrades. That is certainly what is on Air Force One, an expensive and complicated prospect that could cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. Add to that the significant cost of sweeping the aircraft for software modifications or embedded foreign tech. So Trump's big free of charge gift plane looks a lot more expensive when you factor all that in. And bear in mind the U.S. government is already spending billions of dollars on building 2 new Air Force One planes right here in the U.S., made by an American company. But Trump doesn't care about these costs for the American taxpayer. Obviously, he doesn't. What he really cares about is his new palace in the sky. And of course, big checks for his billionaire buddies.
As you know, we have the biggest business leaders in the world here, and they're going to walk away with a lot of checks.
I mean, he doesn't even hide it sometimes. They're going to walk away with a lot of checks. That's what the billionaires are getting out of this trip. The question is, I mean, he's there as the U.S. American president. What are the American people getting out of this trip? Because if this trip won't actually create 1 million American jobs, which it clearly won't, if the $400 million plane could actually cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars, if all of Trump's stated reasons for making this trip his first big trip abroad, if all of those stated reasons aren't really standing up even to the slightest bit of scrutiny, I mean, I've just scratched the surface here, then why is Trump really there? Well, for the same reason all those billionaires are there. Lots and lots of money. Not for the American taxpayer, but for Trump and his family directly. And remember, none of this is exactly new. I mean, do you remember how universally Trump was shunned after January 6th? Banks cut ties with Trump, social media companies kicked him off their platforms. Just to name a few companies: AT&T, Amazon, Best Buy, Marriott, Walmart, Airbnb, Disney, American Airlines, UPS, General Motors, Coca-Cola. The list of companies could go on and on that actively distanced themselves from Trump after January 6th. And there was one type of company, though, that shunned Trump in a way that really, really stung him. The Professional Golfers Association, the PGA. They cut ties with Trump. Remember this? The league canceled their championship at Trump's Bedminster Golf Club. Across the pond in England, their professional golf league dropped Trump as a potential host for their championship, which for the owner of a golf-centered real estate empire was a pretty big blow. Now, at the time, Trump owned 17 golf courses around the world, some of them reportedly charging 6 figures just for the honor of being initiated as a member. And while some of the price tag there came from people trying to gain access to the president, remember in January of 2021, gaining access to Trump wasn't exactly a hot ticket. But right now, as Trump's golf empire was losing, but right as it was losing its biggest draws, an entirely new league filled the void. This is Live Golf. When it launched in 2021, its slogan was "Golf but louder," which seems like who made that up in a room, I don't know, but that was its slogan. And while the PGA and the British League R&A were cutting ties with Trump, Live Golf was making lots of deals. They hosted a tournament at Trump's golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, and another at Trump's golf club in Doral, Florida. The league used hundreds of millions of dollars to attract golf's top athletes and make those tournaments at Trump properties actually matter to sports fans. So who exactly was behind this brand new golf league that was saving Trump's golf empire and probably his ego? Well, the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, if you're wondering where you remember the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund from, you may be thinking of when that same fund gave Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner's venture capital firm a cool $2 billion, just 6 months after Kushner himself left the White House. Nice work if you can get it, I guess. But if that wasn't enough, last year a real estate firm with deep ties to the Saudi Arabian government struck a deal for a new development project, literally for a Trump Tower Saudi Arabia. But of course, that is just some of the money that Trump and his family have received from one country on Trump's Middle East trip. That is just the money from Saudi Arabia, one stop. He's also set to visit Qatar and the UAE. Now, just last month, Trump's adult son, Eric Trump, flew to Qatar to sign a deal to build yet another Trump-branded golf course. This one, which will be built by a Saudi Arabian developer and will be located just north of Qatar's capital city, Doha, has a reported price tag of $5.5 billion and is reportedly set to include an 18-hole golf course, a theme park, and beachfront villas. Now, that deal was just last month. And that, of course, comes on top of the $400 million plane Qatar is reportedly planning to gift Trump. We'll come back and talk about that more of the show for sure. So that's just some of what Trump is getting from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. But he has a third stop, too. What about the UAE? What is he getting from them? Well, these are the mock-ups from the new Trump International Hotel and Tower in Dubai. Again, just last month, Trump's adult son, Eric, inked a deal for the Saudi-linked development company Dar Global to build this billion-dollar 80-story tower in the UAE. The plans boast a gym and a club called The Trump. What's being built is the highest pool in the world on the roof, so there's that. But most importantly, this joint that you see comes with 126 hotel rooms, 446 apartments, with prices starting at just north of $1 million each. And penthouses going for $20 million a pop. Again, all nice work if you can get it. Nice digs, too. Now, I should say it's not really a new thing for foreign countries to shower U.S. officials with inappropriate gifts or try to. But this is different. For one thing, U.S. officials typically turn down inappropriate gifts. No sign of that here, we can see. But beyond that, the scale of this operation, some of what I've just talked about, there's even more, is something we have never seen before. Trump's money-making scheme has only become more brazen in his second term than it was in the first term. And on his first foreign trip abroad, he is clearly demonstrating that he and his family are very much open for business.